All right. So this is Greg Tarr, and this is the final project for Advanced C Sharp CIS174. And we're going to start with, I've kind of got this broken down into two sections. The first section we're going to start with is a demo of my final game project. So we'll start here with what I've got. Um, it basically starts a new section that I created, and you can access options to change the music volume. You can quit from the program if you want to, which I'm not going to do here, or you can just simply go into the first scene in the game. And so, really roughly, that loads into just about as far as I've gotten in the game. Maybe. There it is. All right, so since I couldn't get anywhere in the game, I just kind of laid a canvas over um, my environment, and I set it up so that it would randomly generate a score, allow a user to input their email address, and save it. And so from there, it would call the web API and it would return that leaderboard that we were looking for, uh, ideally on this side of the screen, but I didn't get that far either. And so from there, we'll talk about what I spent all my time on when I was developing this game that led to me ending up with this. All right, let's see how long it takes my quit button to work. All right, so inside, get to our Unity project. All right, here it is. So in the cat simulator game, the thing that I got hung up on the most was definitely character animation. I started with a bunch of sprite sheets. You can see here I was trying to animate that way, and then I kind of left that behind and went for a simpler version, which was the skeletal bone structure, um, skeleton bone animation, which is really cool. And I can't even demo it for you here because I got frustrated and deleted what I was working on before I went back and started doing this again. And then I decided to scrap that and just start working on the API functionality. So this was about all the farther I got. In the original format that I worked on, you could actually manipulate the bones and the skin was attached to it. I didn't make it back that far again when I went back through it next time. And so from there, that took the longest, as well as just learning new things. The Unity environment is one of the things that didn't go very well. Um, Learning by immersion is something that I like to do, and that I feel like I learn the best that way. But for as far as this project goes, I just knew I had to start from too much of a square one to actually be able to make it to create a decent game. I would have been much better off making a much simpler game instead of spending hours worrying about or trying to work on animation or environment creation before I even get to actually coding an actual game. Um, my favorite part was that I learned Unity and I got to access and try little bits of things. Like the animation stuff is so cool. It's one of my favorite things, but I only know how to do little bits and pieces of things where it was exciting because I knew that, hey, if I really work on this or if I spend some time working on this, uh, obviously more time, then I'd get good at it and I could actually make some of the games that I like to play. I just didn't have time to spend on it, I guess. There was one afternoon I spent 8 hours working on my environment, and I'm so unhappy with how far I got. Like the end result, the end product. It's really discouraging when you dump that much time into it and you're really not getting very far. And I had the same issue with animation. I know how to do lots of cool stuff. I just didn't get to do enough of it, and that's what made it frustrating for me. Let's see. And that's one of the things I wish would have been different. Is I wish that one I had more time to work on it, and when school's done and I'm not working my current job, I'll have plenty of extra time for playing with stuff like this. Unfortunately, right now, I just didn't. Some of the packages, we'll go into some of the packages that I used. You can see right here, this puppet is a animation package that I downloaded from here. And this, when I found this package, this is why I switched to the skeletal bone style of animation away from the sprite sheets. It's because I was having an issue finding sprite sheets. So I went to this style, and it's really cool, and you can really do it with anything. I didn't need this package, but it was nice to have an easy jumping off point. Here was the 2D room that I started with. Excuse me. This 2D room was kind of what I based it off of, and my plan was to build onto the room. I would build rooms to the right or to the left of this one, and that would be my game. I used Anima 2D as well as a few other 2D packages to support the skeletal animation. I didn't get very far with it, but it was just, like I said, because of lack of time. And then the Game Jam menu template was what I used for my menu template, which was really cool. And I actually used a combination of this template with a few other tutorials to kind of achieve what I was after for the menu. And that I'm probably most proud of the menu aspect, which is kind of silly when it comes to a game. But anyway, as far as end result goes, that's one of the things I'm most proud of. Some of the code for this was a script that I wrote for that canvas that I talked about, where I can organize and enter an email and return a game score. You see, I've got some code. I'm trying to achieve connection. I could never achieve connection to my API. Through Postman, I know that I was getting good data into my API and out of my API on my project side, but from Unity, I could never establish a solid connection. So that was a huge hang up. I ended up having to stop this evening and start to prepare for this. Actually, kind of just scrapped this a little while ago to start working on the final project. Let's see. All right, so here we are at the game. This is part 2. Sorry, I kind of skipped ahead really quickly there. So this is the web application section of the game. Here's the live web application. This is the home page, and when you click on it by clicking on the brand up there, or you can click on it by you can get to it by clicking on the home link. The about section just lists the page's creator, and then the high scores call the database and return the top 10 high scores. I just reset that. It was returning all of them, and I just changed it so it only returns the top 10, so it's more like a leaderboard. Here's the error page that I added to generate an error. And before we go to that, we're going to start with registering a new person. So we'll add in an email here. And a simple password. Excuse me. All right, so you can see that we're logged in here, and all the links still work. And here's where I found an issue just recently. A bug I found today is when you try to access the profile from the live version, it never loads up here. It's going to bug out on us. Oh, maybe it's not. Of course it's not, because now we're live and it's going to work. So we'll change our information. And we'll save it to our database. Good, and then so we'll navigate to a different page, and we'll navigate back to it, and you'll see that it saves all the information there. We can even save our email address. And there it is. It saves a separate email address than the one that we use for the login, as you can see right there. All right, so here's the only issue where, let's see, we'll generate an error here so it shows what's going to happen. Let's go to the test page that doesn't exist. Oh, now of course, my 404 error is not going to work. Oh well, that's okay. It works sometimes. Anyway, here's the error generation. We're going to generate an error. It's going to take us to just your generic, standard page. And we have a very specific one that's not working on my 404 error. All right, so here we are. All right, so here we are back at the local version of it, just so that I can show that, at one time this was working when I get my 404 error here. When I try to go to a page that doesn't exist, it's going to tell us a little bit more information. Same thing with a profile. If you're already logged in, it's going to tell you more information about where an error is, why it can't receive that. Right now it's because nothing is logged in session. All right, so from there we'll transition over to the actual application itself. I'll just go ahead and stop that. Actually, I just want to show Postman a little bit. So here's some, just to show how we're actually accessing and working with the web API. We'll just do a simple get call here to our live version of the website, and we'll see all of our high scores here. And then we'll just do a, let's do a post. Let's see, I know I've got a post over here somewhere. Okay, yeah, we'll just do this one. This is a post, and we'll set our, we're going to send it a game score of like 150, which should be the high score. And so we'll just send that to our application. There it shows the score that's been created. And now we'll just do another quick another quick call to the get high scores. This will get our leaderboard, and you can see that 150 score is right there at the top. So I just wanted to show that the web API works on the project side. It just does not connect from Unity. All right, so what went well about this project is definitely that I didn't even know what an API was. So just learning about APIs. Here I have an API folder. I don't have an API project, but learning how powerful a tool that is really tells me a whole lot about web applications. And then going along with that, Postman is a really cool technology that I learned as well. I'm much more comfortable with MVC applications now, having worked so extensively with this one. And then one of the other things that I liked or I enjoyed was working with unit testing. Got to practice unit tests, and also the big thing, I got to know the .NET framework. So there's so many things that go into .NET that I had no idea about, and just because I hadn't worked with it before, that's what went well. And probably my favorite part about this was actually getting to work with a cloud storage program. Everything's going to Azure, or not Azure, everything's going to cloud storage now. So being able to say that I worked with a cloud storage, with cloud storage on one of my web applications is a really good thing, especially for a resume. My least favorite part was that it took so long to learn it, and it was just because this is an immersion style course, and I really like that. That's how I learn the best, but it just takes so long to debug. And so like, I didn't know how to debug a web application before this class. So having to learn that before I had to learn the application side of what we were trying to do for the coding, that's what took the longest. And that's what really slowed me down. I ran into the same thing with Unity. I didn't know how to debug issues in Unity. So it's really hard to start to learn things if you don't know how to debug in that framework, I suppose. One of the things that didn't go so well about this was, I'll talk about the trying to unit test Entity Framework objects. That didn't go so well. That was maybe my least favorite part, and that was my biggest hang up when I got to the unit testing part, was that I couldn't test the Entity Framework pieces. If I could do it differently, if there's anything that I could do different, I would take this class in person and not online only. I feel like I'm so far behind. Once I got behind, it was just almost impossible to catch up. And it just was like a quicksand thing. The harder I tried, it felt like the further behind I got. And so if I had been in class, I would have been able to ask questions more directly or communicate with other students, and I probably wouldn't have had near the issues that I thought. You can see by my code that it is a giant mess. Well, of course that one's not, but I've got commented out code everywhere that I have to fix. I just am not yet. Oh yeah, I also had an issue with dependency injection. Some of my dependency injections weren't working very well, so I started with some things and then I had to go back and revert. Um, and that's just another issue that I have to debug that I haven't started on yet. That should wrap it up from here. I'll see if I can think of anything else that I need to add.